We have a school spotlight tonight on Ocean View Elementary.
Thank you, President Black, trustees, and student board members. I am, stand up, you guys are great. I would like to turn this over to Ocean View teachers who will be doing our Ocean View spotlight. We also have Terry Georgeson here, who is our Ocean View principal.
So board members, we've put a worksheet on your desks for you. If you had a chance beforehand to fill it out, great. If you didn't, no big deal. We were just making you work a little extra. My name is Bridget Banyalis.
I'm Izzy Cohen, and we're both fourth grade teachers at Ocean View Elementary.
Could you
Yes.
be sure you talk into the mic?
In the mic, great. We're here to talk to you about how we teach social studies curriculum at Ocean View. Because social studies is a subject with so many narratives to take into account, we've used culture as a common language in order to honor all the different narratives.
Our primary goal, though, is to teach kids to think critically about California history and construct their own interpretations about cultural narratives.
The primary question we consider when planning all of our units is, how does each new group coming to California affect the people and the land, the past and the present?
Recently, we attended a workshop at the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles, and they gave us a framework to think about social justice standards through the lens of identity, diversity, justice, and action. And this was kind of a nice comprehensive framework because it validated what we were teaching, but also gave us more form into how we could delineate our units.
So windows and mirrors. This is a framework that's being used more often to build more empathy in our culture and to be more reflective. So every child must first have mirrors to confirm and celebrate their reality.
Then every child needs to have windows to expand their worldviews. And at best, our culture curriculum is both a window and a mirror.
So when we're considering mirrors, those are the individuals. We're looking at the individual. Students are able to identify their own culture, celebrate their identity, and question how their own culture is complex, how it's shaped historically, geographically, and by other cultures.
And windows give us insight into other people's culture and allow us to compare and contrast our own cultural identities to others. What started off as a simple graphic organizer has evolved into the cornerstone of our social studies curriculum. We break culture into 5 spheres: economic, political, social, aesthetic, and belief. And we teach the students that culture is impacted by geography and climate, history, and other cultures. We teach that each culture develops its own shared beliefs and ideas. And before even teaching about other cultures, we investigate what we identify as our own. This is that mirror. We celebrate the culture, the knowledge, the histories that the students bring into the classroom every day. We cultivate cultural pride. Having a framework that's revisited throughout the year allows students to hone their observations, make connections, and form their own opinions about how California culture has been structured and restructured. Through field experiences and reading expository texts, students determine what defines a culture and how that culture came to be. At Ocean View, the diversity of our classrooms and our population promotes this dynamic response to the curriculum. And students are using evidence and experience to justify their findings and of what defines a particular culture. So, of course, the first thing we had to do to contextualize this for our students was to create our own cultural model. So children brought in photographs, drawings, souvenirs, all sorts of things, and then they placed it in the different domains and had to argue why it fit into certain domains. This also encouraged accountable talk because you might bring an image such as a temple and someone could argue that that goes in belief and someone else might argue that it would go in aesthetic because it's a form of architecture. So it's always bringing a dialogue.
So developing cultural awareness is a process. After examining our own cultures, students are looking to create a fictitious culture modeled after the character Wesley in the children's book Westlandia. Like Wesley, they
create a unique culture after considering natural resource, geography, leadership, what beliefs people hold sacred, and how they communicate. So what you see here is the example of the packet that they're working on and crafting, and in the end result is a published culture all their own.
And when students create their own culture, it provides a mirror and also a window, but they connect to this culture. They become intimate with the unique characteristics of their culture. They realize the challenge of sustaining this culture in the face of like fragility of natural resources or political changes or economic changes. And they become very much intrinsically attached to their culture. So
with this attachment, we're able to kind of play on their emotions when we are teaching history. In some years, I've colonized their culture, altered it, and shifted it. And so they understand, they're able to empathize when they're reading about different cultures visiting California and having an impact. And so it's just kind of one of the things we do to kind of get them to feel. So the culture model in action looks messy, and it's interactive, and it generates a lot of discussions. The reason why I like to present it this way is because the students are able to see the connections, and it really helps them have a dialogue. We do sorts where they sort images, they have discussions about why they're placing things where they are, then they start to ask questions about that. This one, they were looking at the similarities and differences between Spanish and Native American cultures, and then they were asked the question, is there evidence of both cultures in California today? And we really got them to the point of asking why. And that's a key part of our teaching, is having the kids notice and then say, but why? And then search for those answers to those questions together.
So one practice that I have in my class is, you saw earlier that social is one of the spheres of our cultural model, and a primary characteristic of social is language. And I wanted to capitalize on the amount of different languages that are spoken in Ocean View, usually maybe 8 to 12 languages per class. And I wanted to give kids an opportunity to take pride in this. And in the past, I was trying to do ways like, oh, you can do the lunch count in your home language or introduce yourself in your home language. But I felt that that was kind of an artificial way of providing a window or mirror because, okay, next week you've forgotten how to count in Thai, and you're not sustaining that understanding. So I instituted a practice called Language of the Week, which I'm going to talk a little bit how it looks day to day. So on Monday morning, I give a presentation, and it consists of a 3-minute video of someone just teaching basic phrases in that language. In the corner is an example. I try to get a friend to do it or a family member, but if they're not available, there's YouTube. And then I give a presentation on that language, the population of speakers by country, maps, general geography of the language, the evolution of the language, how it was impacted by wars and colonization and trade, the script of the language, and then fun facts. So that's the Monday morning component. And then daily, they greet each other in that language in our morning meeting. So we're staying with one language the whole week. So by the end, they can greet each other in, sometimes we skip weeks, so usually 30 languages. And the most fun part is there's a guest speaker. And oftentimes, it's a parent. This is a grandparent, and they bring in food from their culture, and they talk about traditions and celebrations and how they learn the language and what it means to them. And this is a definite mirror for them to see themselves in the classroom, and it also gives themselves a chance to share these skills of speaking another language, which you might not necessarily know about the child in an English-speaking classroom. And it also allows the parents to come into the classroom, and it builds community with them. Oftentimes, parents who aren't comfortable in English, because it's not their first language, will actually come in and share because they can speak in their home language. And the best part is they bring food, so that's really exciting. So the purpose is that language is a great window also into the effects of, as I said, colonization, war, trade, geography, immigration, because you see the effect on the language in tangible ways. You see it in vocabulary, you see it in accents, you see it in body language, you see it in the idiomatic expressions, and this, of course, fits into how does culture affect the people and the land, which is our essential question. And additionally, who is creating the language itself, and then who ultimately writes the cultural narrative?
Culture Days is another way we study culture in fourth grade. It's not appropriation, but it's building empathy and a historical perspective of lived histories. And again, it's built around those essential questions. Each planned Culture Day is crafted so that students can explore hands-on activities, arts, crafts, and music. Using the culture model, they're able to systematically compare the cultural shifts over time. Informed and articulate, these fourth graders take their learning not chapter by isolated chapter. Instead, they learn to synthesize, they learn to infer, and they learn to critique historical events as a composition of factors and influence. Students consider the cost and benefits to each culture. Who gives, who benefits, who contributed to California, and at what cost? Through these questions, students form their own opinions about power structures and systems of inequality.
So the first Culture Day we have is the Acorn Harvest Culture Day, and usually the way we format it is there are 4 fourth grades. Each teacher takes on the teaching of a certain skill or craft or, lesson, activity, and then we rotate the classes around to different stations. So there's usually 4 stations. So Acorn Harvest Day, we had acorn grinding and technique, Chumash rock painting, medicine bags, Iron Chef, where they cook with, they have a cook-off competition with acorn flour. And all the questions, though, and all the activities are grounded in the different social spheres.
Explorer Culture Day is another culture day that we celebrate. Again, we're using the essential questions to drive the activities. We used to call it Pirate Day, and because we thought, hey, it's fun, let's everybody dress up as pirates. But as reflective teachers that we are, we asked ourselves the question, what are we really trying to teach? What is the story we need them to go away with? And so the culture of the explorers and the effect of the explorers on California is very, very important. Pirates are a part of that. So we do look at pirates. This year, we encourage students to dress up as sailors, and most of them adhered to the instructions. We talk about navigation. We're looking at the economic sphere, medicine at sea, which is really cool. You get to talk about scurvy. Technology, the ropes, music and dance, really important. It's part of the aesthetic sphere. And the spice trade. What did the Europeans value? What were they looking for? What did they bring? And what did they take? Oh, and then yes, pirate democracy is my favorite. We talk about the leadership structure on a ship, and it really throws kids for a loop because pirate ships were actually incredibly democratic. And they always bring that back. Well, like the pirates. And I said, yes, like the pirates. So they learn to flip their perceptions or their perspectives of a culture. And it's great when we can do that.
Gold Rush Day, there aren't as many activities. It's more centered around the play, and so the children are actually inhabiting different roles and historical characters, and then they do a play for the parents. But we also have a flapjack breakfast, poker and betting, and then the main thing is the Gold Rush Play.
So, is this working? Culture Days themselves are an evolving cultural model. We're thankful to our groundbreakers, the Albany teachers across the district and across the years who have shaped this. This is not new. This is not ours. We've borrowed. It's really hard for teachers to say, this is mine, because it's not ours. It's everyone's. And we've just looked at it, shifted our angle on it a little bit. Our shifters and shakers are parents who give us feedback. When we're planning these days, I always go out to my parents and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is the way I'm seeing it. What does it look like to you? And they'll give us feedback. And we've changed curriculum based on parent feedback. And participants, the students. The students shape this and encourage us to do different activities and inspire us to do more. As we learn more, the way we teach shifts.
So by viewing history through the lens of culture, we allow this dialogue to emerge with the parents, the students, the teachers, everyone. And we listen and we are constantly asking, is this working?
So in the past, I know Rancho Day has been a topic of discussion in our district, so I want to address that. And in the past, Rancho Day was enacted by recreating the Rancho era through the lens of Spanish colonialists. The event reflected the carefree life of the Spanish and mestizos, the mestizo ranch owners. And when we asked, is this working, we found it was mostly a singular narrative, that we needed another way to honor the different perspectives.
So today we use the essential questions to ground students in the understanding that when we're holding another culture, we must do so lightly and also with respect. And so we've modified the curriculum, not just Rancho Day, across California to study the social stratification during these periods. But specifically with Rancho Day, students are asked, how did the Rancho era influence California? How are the ranchos able to prosper? And this takes more research, as it's obviously not in the current textbook model. And it also brings up unpleasant histories, oppression and violence.
So without this dialogue and giving voices a platform, we're not truly teaching history or giving students the tools they require in order to make their own assertions and question the veracity of the sources they're exposed to and given in the future.
So we read, we talk, we listen, we build, and we take action.
And that's the only way we truly learn.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Navin?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to say thank you. This is actually the most amazing curriculum I've seen in like elementary schools. Like, this is really awesome. I'm very excited about this. I did have 2 questions. One doesn't focus on elementary school so much, but I remember some people mentioning this to me. When you mention different communities that would be marginalized, I guess, or just kind of like smaller communities, how do you involve students without making them feel targeted? And what I mean by that is, like, when you call on a student or try to involve them, like, for a different culture, maybe, like, how do we approach that student? How do you guys, you know, kind of like engage that student without making them feel targeted because of their identity? And I just wanted your take on that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
So I do student-led activities in my class, and I kind of promote it as, hey, you know, this is a way of getting your culture out. If you feel like there's something that you need to share, that you have something in your family that's special, something that is part of your identity that's special, bring it to class. And I help them plan a lesson and ask them what they want, what's their teaching objective, and how we roll out the lesson. So one, they learn how to teach what they really want to teach and learn how to do it in a lesson format. That comes from them. And so I'm constantly saying, and guess what? We can do student-led activities for this. And so they start to find those opportunities to jump in. They're allowed to bring family members. They're allowed to get other students involved. So in the past, we've had kids say, hey, I really want to celebrate this part of my culture, and they bring it in.
Perfect. And then my final question, do you mention the slave trade at all when you talk about the European trade across, just in that unit? I know that you guys did that.
Yeah. You want to take that, or you want me to take it? I'll take it. We talk about slavery in, we don't talk about the slave trade so much. We do touch on it a little bit with Cortez and Cabrillo, because Cabrillo was involved in that. So we do touch on that, but where we really bring it home is when we're talking about the Native Americans and we're having that discussion. Slaves or laborers? What do you think? And the kids, really unpack that. And then we get the experiential learning perspective when they're going to the missions and meeting with Native Americans and asking those questions. What do you think? And so it's alive. It's really neat.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really love the posters and the domains and the fictitious culture. I thought that was amazing. So thank you guys so much. I'm very impressed with this curriculum. Like, it's awesome. I'm very excited to see where this goes. Yep.
Charlie?
So this was so great. Thank you. How would you feel about sharing it with a larger audience? I'm thinking about, could we post this PowerPoint, for example, on the district webpage? We won't get your wonderful audio with it, but it would be something. And, I'm just thinking that we do get questions about, what's being taught in fourth grade. And this would be one way to help answer that.
We actually could get the audio with it.
We could actually get the audio, but I think I just wanted to ask how you felt about that.
I think we would probably be open to that. I do think the audio needs to go along with it because I think some of these slides in isolation could be promoting what we're trying to work against, just the costumes, et cetera, to make sure that there's background that's explaining how we are using that in a systematic way.
And I also want to be really sensitive to the fact that it is something that's evolved. I taught one way. As we have different teachers coming in, the culture shifts and changes, and we want to honor that this is not ours, that this is an evolution that we're part of. I don't know how you can put a disclaimer that says that, but if you can figure out a fancy way of honoring the past and everybody who's created it, yeah.
Great. Ross?
So we formally teach foreign language starting in grade 7, years and years after it is probably best to do so. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on could we introduce more foreign language content, curriculum, training opportunities in or outside the classroom at an earlier age. The second question is on parental involvement. Do you see any impediments that we as the board might want to address? Are there ways to increase parental involvement? I just read a study out of Chicago on sort of intervention at age 3 or so. And long before we see them, the help or the harm is happening in parents who are reading with kids, et cetera. Are there ways that we as the board could address increasing parental involvement from what you've seen?
Is it parental involvement with
the
language
classroom?
or in classroom or with
Across the board.
culture?
So language is an issue. Parental involvement in any way is the second.
Well, parental involvement's huge. We can't do this without the parents. That constant dialogue about how do you feel about these questions, how do you feel about the way we're teaching, is part of the magic of the curriculum. They're there. We couldn't teach this without the parents coming in. And they get it. They're like, wow, you really want me to teach? I said, yep. Here's the lesson. You're gonna, and this is the point you're really getting. It's written all over these tables. They need to know this, the answer to this question after this exploration. So parents are involved. And I think Izzy can talk about the language of the week, but we're pulling from our diverse community. We're getting them in. And I've taught at other districts where I had to have food, and I had to stay until 7 o'clock at night to get parents to come in. Teaching in Albany has been this revolutionary experience that you send an email out and you have 10 parents responding right away. So if we're blessed with that, we have to maximize those opportunities. And I think that's what we recognize as teachers. Let's bring them in as much as we can. And knowing that we're going to be criticized by our instruction is open to criticism, and we have to be okay with that. And sometimes I don't like the criticism. I'm stuck in a way, and but I think about it and I soften and I think, well, what's a different angle we can take where we can come to some common ground? Do you want to
I guess just with the language, I think that, yeah, it would be valuable to teach language earlier on, especially for accent development. And I think there is a lot of interest, as there are a lot of kids who are in after-school programs to learn different languages, and then many parents have their kids in school on Saturday or Sunday to learn the home language or learn how to write in that script. I think language is a great way to teach so many different themes, as we've discussed, and once again, language of the week would not be as effective without the parental involvement. And I think part of the reason so many parents participate is because the kids go home and they're super excited about it. They're like, "Mom, please come in and teach this and bring food so my classmates will love me." Not that that's the only way to get acceptance in the classroom, but they get really excited about sharing their talents and also their family's talents. And I had one more thing, but that's all.
Then a follow-up on that. There will be families that cannot as well participate. Single parents or both parents working, et cetera. How has that gone? Has that been okay? Is it works around?
That's fine, because the other option I say is film a video of yourself, email it to me, and I'll play it for the class. And so I do that a lot with when there's someone in the class who doesn't speak the language, because after 10 weeks we're kind of out of languages from my class because I pull from the class. Then I reach out to my friends, and they've sent me videos, and this is the second year I've done this, so I get to reuse those, which is cool.
Mahima.
Part of the reason why I've always loved social studies is because I think that learning about history is increasingly important to better ourselves for the future and also for the present. So I really like your presentation and how you guys are touching on that. And my question is, how do you guys sort of involve the current issues, current pop culture in terms of, race and, all of these other issues that revolve around social studies, and how do you tie that into your curriculum?
I'll start.
You want to start?
I definitely do that through Language of the Week, but I also mostly do that through literature. And we do a big historical fiction unit and also read-alouds, and bring that in through literature, because that is a way for kids to build empathy with characters, and then we discuss. And recently, after the shooting on Valentine's Day, Ocean View wanted to organize a peace sign. And so I wanted my class to feel super involved and engaged and actually know what they were doing. So they had to do all the math behind it. They had to go out to the playground, measure everything, figure out the circumference of the peace sign, calculate the average arm span of a elementary school student, multiply it by the number of kids in the class, pair them with the buddy class, direct everyone out into the field. And they were like, "We did this. We planned this." So I think giving kids ownership of the issues, and that last standard in the social justice standards, action. Can't just talk about it in the dialogue, you got to do something with it.
We both do. We use a lot of VTS, visual thinking strategies. So you put an image and you get kids to talk about what they see and what they're connecting to. And then we pull that through so that they're looking at an image, they're making connections, and then you're teaching the lessons and the vocabulary to help them access what that image really was that they were looking at. So last night I was preparing my United Farm Workers lesson, and we talk about environmental justice and what it is. And I start by showing them pictures of field laborers. And I don't tell them that those are pictures of my family members until later. But they're breaking down. What is that a picture of? What are you noticing? I'm noticing that their bodies are covered. It looks like it's hot. I notice they're bent over. So they're accessing the curriculum before, in a way that they're either previewing it, but it's in a way that it's kind of a sneaky way of getting them into connecting with it, so that they can go deeper later.
I want to thank you for this. Great presentation, and it's really exciting to see how you're making the curriculum come alive. That makes a huge difference to the students. It really, I'm sure they will carry this with them the rest of their lives, and it's really important. So thank you for all you're doing.
Can I say one last thing?
yeah.
I want to thank you
Jacob has a
for allowing different schools to come and present, because when we first got this, we're like, oh, I don't know, we're not good at presenting. That's not, I don't know. I don't like the microphone. There were so many different thoughts and feelings and emotions, but when we sat down, we make so much. Teachers make so much, and we're holding so much, and we're processing so much. To put it all together and look at each other and go, wow, we can't even put all the different items that we're focusing on. So to look at each other and go, wow, that looks good. We know it feels good, but it's really neat to. This was more of a validation to ourselves. Like, yes, we knew we were doing well, but like it's really neat to put it all in one place. So thank you for listening and asking good questions.
Jacob, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something real quick. I wanted to thank you guys for your excellent presentation. I can tell your enthusiasm for it, and I'm sure it trickles down to the students. I also agree with Board Member Blanchard as far as getting this up on the website, for people to see this wonderful project that you're doing. And with your permission, if I can use some of your ideas in my classroom.
Please, and contact us.
Yeah, show us
Contact
what you're
us.
doing and how you change it.
No,
That's the only way we get better is by sharing. We make it better.
I know teachers share with each other, but I still wanted to ask before I started using some of your ideas.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.